Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 11:20. Our next case is Mr. James E. Smith. Mr. Smith, would you please introduce yourself and give us your DOC number?
James Edward Smith, 84129.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow the participants who've indicated they wish to speak to have their input. Here on your behalf today is Joyce Wilderson, Damaka Smith, Shawanda Nelson, and Elsie Smith. Also present is Ann Cohen, Aisha Cohen, Natasha Cohen, Reginald Smith, and Willie Smith. Here in opposition is Mr. Roy Breland, Miss Linda Wall, and Miss Mary Graham. At the end, you'll be allowed to make a brief statement before the board votes. Do you understand our procedure, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of James E. Smith, DOC number 84129, date of birth August the 31st of 1946. He's a second offender, classified as a second offender. He has a parole eligibility. He has an adjusted good time date of August the 7th of 2038, a full term date of September the 26th of 2091. He is serving a 115-year sentence on the charge of attempted aggravated rape, where he was adjudicated a habitual offender, and aggravated crime against nature. Mr. Smith, is that all accurate?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, your case has been assigned to Mr. Alvin Roche. Mr. Roche will begin his questioning of you. Would you please answer any questions he may have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Smith. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Good, Mr. Smith. Currently 76 years old, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been convicted of 2 felonies. And this is a rehearing. When was your last hearing?
Last hearing was
Yes.
last hearing I had was in 2017, sir. I came back on court.
How about 2019?
Yes, sir.
2019.
Yes, sir.
And you were denied because of victim opposition and law enforcement opposition, and the judge was opposed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I see where you've earned 404 days good time. Tell me about some of the programs that you've completed. I think you've been incarcerated for 46.5 years.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
So tell me about the programs you completed.
I completed victim opposition. I haven't completed it yet, but I completed casual raise, 100 hours, thinking of you. And now I'm in process of victim opposition. I haven't completed that yet, sir.
Victim awareness.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, have you completed all 4 phases of your sex offender treatment?
Yes, sir, I have.
Tell me exactly what you got out of sex offender treatment.
I got a whole lot out of that, sir.
So tell me what.
I know how far to stay away from a certain school perimeter, sir. I know how far to stay away from there.
Sir, how about the victim and how you affect the victim emotionally, mentally, and physically?
Physically? Now rephrase your question, sir.
What did you learn about the victim of this crime and how she was affected emotionally, mentally, and physically?
emotionally and physically.
How did this crime affect the victim?
Oh, it's, I affect the victim is, I know it's sadly, it affected them badly, sir. I know it's a bad on my part, it affected them badly. I victimized everybody, sir.
Did you threaten to kill the victim?
No, sir. I victimized everybody, sir.
I think if it wasn't for the car that pulled up in front of the house, and you said that her son checked on her every morning, you grabbed your clothes and you ran out, you would have harmed that lady more than raping her.
No, sir.
Okay. Well, let's get started with the interview. You've been in September of this year, you've been incarcerated 47 years. You've been parole eligible since February 1996. 27 years. How many parole hearings have you had in 27 years?
How many parole hearings have I had?
Yes. 4. And you've been denied 4 times.
Yes, sir.
You were approximately 30 years old when you committed this crime, is that correct?
30 or 27, yeah, really.
Well, been incarcerated for 47 years. And you're 76 years old. So I think you were about 30 years old when you committed this crime. So tell me what was going on when you were 30 years old that spearheaded was the emphasis for you committing this crime?
Stupidness.
But
Stupidness.
you weren't young, you were 30 years old.
I would say ignorance, hatred.
Okay. Did drugs or alcohol play any part in this
Yes,
crime?
sir. Yes, sir.
And what kind of drugs and alcohol did you use the night that you committed this crime?
Alcohol, wine.
Any illegal drugs?
I used to say illegal drug, yes.
And what kind of drugs did you use?
Marijuana.
Anything strong than marijuana? Anything stronger than marijuana?
I used to take frying pan stuff and slip it through my nose.
Were you intoxicated the night that you committed this crime?
Semi.
What kind of treatment have you received to address the problem you have with drugs and alcohol?
Since I've been locked up.
Yes.
Well, since I've been locked up, I try to stay away from all problems.
What kind of programming have you taken? Living in Balance, Celebrate Recovery, Substance Abuse, NAAA meetings. Have you participated in any of those programs?
Well, they told me to stay away from substance abuse because I didn't take it. I didn't see I had no drug problem when I came here.
But you did have a problem.
Yeah, but I didn't say that.
So when you entered prison, you told them that you didn't have a problem with alcohol or drugs.
Nope.
Consequently, you've received no rehabilitative programs to work on that situation. Is that correct?
No, sir.
What number?
Yes, sir.
Would you look in his jacket to see if there's any substance abuse education or treatment?
No, sir, I'm looking at his form. He told him when he first came in here that he didn't have a substance abuse problem, so therefore they didn't give him any substance abuse treatment.
Thank you, Warden.
You're welcome.
Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
how long did you engage in smoking of marijuana?
How many years?
Yes.
Quite a few years, sir.
So you started probably when you were a teenager, right?
Yes, sir.
So, and you commit this crime at 30, so we talking 10, 15, 20 years.
Yes, sir.
How long did you sniff chemicals?
A few years. Maybe 20, 10, 15 years, sir.
So basically, you do have a substance abuse problem that's unaddressed at this time. Okay.
Yes,
What is your current job assignment? Do you still have a job assignment?
Right now, I have a problem with my lower back. I'm assigned to the kitchen, but I don't hardly do anything, sir.
So you're on semi,
Just able to work because I have a lower back disc problem.
He has a no status.
are you a trustee?
Yes, sir.
Board member?
Yeah, he's minimum B. He's supposed to work in the kitchen, but he don't.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith, you've been incarcerated for almost 47 years. How are you going to support yourself if and when you're ever released?
Sir, I'm able to do certain things, like do certain hobby craft. I'm able to do certain work. Like
Are
do
you Mr. Smith, are you eligible for Social Security or any form like SSI?
Yes, sir.
You are eligible for Social Security.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what, I see you have a transition plan with your sister in Tangier Home in Louisiana. Tell us about that transition plan. Where are you gonna live if and when you get released?
I'm planning on going to live with my sister in Texas after I transfer to Texas.
Okay. Now, the plan I have in my paperwork is a sister that lives in Tangier Home, Louisiana. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. But I
Or
want to,
are you with your sister in Texas?
live with her for a while, and then I want to transfer that to Houston, Texas, too. If that's okay with y'all.
Okay. Mr. Smith has a low risk assessment. He has a fair institutional record. And his last disciplinary write-up was in November of 1999. Some 23 years ago. Do you remember that write-up, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
What was that write-up for?
Disobedience.
Disobedience, number 5.
Yes, sir.
So what happened in November of 1995 that you discovered that you need to follow rules and regulations in the last almost 24 years, you've had no write-ups?
Disobedience, 1995. Thank you.
But tell me why you hadn't had any write-ups since then.
Keeping a clean record. I do keep a writing record. I doing what the people tell me to do.
So let me go over your programs. You probably missed a couple. Programs you completed, Thank You for a Change. You completed all 4 phases of your sex offender treatment, anger management, 100-hour pre-release, healthcare training, Malachi dance, and multiple faith-based programs. You have opposition to your early release from the DA's office, the sheriff's office. You have 5 letters. 5 letters were sent out to the victims' families, and we received no response, but we do have the victim's family here this morning, and they will make their statements a little later in the presentation. Mr. Smith, I see that you recently made some hospital visits. How's your medical issues?
It's in bad shape, sir.
I see the last time you went to the hospital was in February of last year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are all your medical issues under control?
No, sir, I got a fibrillated heart rate, sir.
Okay. Are you receiving medication and treatment for that?
I had to go check on that this morning, but I delayed it for a reason, because I had a parade. I had to meet the board today, sir.
Okay. How are you feeling today?
Kind of shaky right now because I'm nervous because I had to meet the board. I had to go.
Okay. Warden Amble, do you have any comments, concerns, or remarks at this time?
No, sir, I don't.
Thank you, Warden Amble. Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
have you been taking literacy classes?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how to read yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how long have you been taking literacy classes?
Quite some time, ma'am, because sometimes I go up and down, because the scores goes up and down, ma'am.
Okay. Are you currently enrolled in literacy classes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Now we'll hear from your supporters. We actually have 4 people that wish to speak, but we only allow 3 to speak. So y'all need to decide whether it's Ms. Joyce Wilderson, Yamaka Smith, Shawanda Nelson, or Elsie Smith. One of 4 of you is not going to be able to speak. All right. I guess I'll choose. So we'll ask Ms. Joyce Wilderson. Will you please come?
Members of the board, my name is Joyce Elwood. I am the sister of James L. Smith, 84129. He is the oldest of our family. James has been in Aggravated for over 40+ years. He is up in age, he's sickly, and can y'all please sit in y'all to grant him parole. So he would be able to come home. So I would be able to take care of him.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilkinson. Ms. Damaka Smith?
Good morning to the board. My name is Lamika Smith. I am Damaka Smith. I'm the niece of James Smith. It's my privilege to stand here for you guys to, ask the grants for him to be released. He's a good person. Yes, we make mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes. We don't stay there, we move. So it's my privilege to come up here and say, one hearts open minds. So now my uncle released, he's been incarcerated almost 50 years. And I'm just praying, that he released. Thank you.
Ms. Shawanda Nelson?
Good morning to the board. And to family. We are not negating what has happened to this family. Our uncle has served 47 years. He has done his due diligence. He was a young man when he came in. All of us make mistakes, and all of us grow from our mistakes. I believe that my uncle, James Smith, have learned from his mistakes. He have, since he's been incarcerated, tried to the best of his ability to do better, not only for himself, but for others as well. Again, we all make mistakes, and we cannot negate to this family what has happened, and we're not trying to do that. What we are saying today is that our uncle has served over 47 years incarcerated, not being in our lives. And we understand that something happened to another family as well. And I reiterate that we are not saying that nothing happened. What we are saying is that our uncle have grown from the time that he has been incarcerated until now. He is not that 30-year-old man. He has grown. He is 76 years old. And we are asking, we know that his time on this earth is short, that you would allow him to be with his family in the rest of his last days here on earth. God bless you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we'll hear from the opposition, Mr. Roy Breland. Good morning. Who wishes to, you, Mr. Breland?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
reading, yes.
Ms. Graham, you wish to speak? Okay, this is Ms. May Graham. Thank you, Ms. Graham. You'll introduce yourself, please. Tell us what you'd like us to know.
My name is May Graham. I am the victim's daughter. She came to live with me after this happened. So I've seen personally the suffering and the misery she went through the rest of her life until she died. She was terrified of the dark. She was terrified of everything. It was a miserable rest of her. I cannot describe to you how this affected her. She had 7 kids. My dad died. I was 5. She was less than a year old. He was about 14.
No, yeah.
She ran the bus there with nothing. She suffered a lot. But this was the most horrible thing that could have never happened to him. And he is not truthful. He is not accountable. He threatened her life. Repeated. Where she was living at the time, was about 6 miles from where he lived. He walked all the way over there. He had time to think. This was planned. She was isolated. There was nobody close by. He knew that. She had lived there for 20 years. It's a small community. Everybody, although we didn't know him, everybody knew everybody, and we lived there our whole lives. He walked that far planning this. There was nowhere else for him to go there. There was no business. There was no other homes. She was strictly isolated. He knew that. He took advantage of it. He planned it. I feel like if someone had not drove up, he would have killed her. If he was just wanting to go there and assault her, he would have done that and left under cover of darkness. This was after daylight. What was he going to do? Stay the rest of the day? There's no other thing that I could possibly think of that he was going to kill her. And she thought he was going to kill her. He repeatedly told her he was going to kill her. She kept asking, "Are you going to kill me?" And he said, "Yes, I am." We beg you, please, do not let this person go. He's 70-something years old. I'm 70 years old. I'm still working. There's a lot more life after 70. I hope. And he has been an habitual offender. This wasn't the first time. It's, in what my understanding, he's done this before, several times already before. He goes to her house that is so isolated. He knew what he was doing. He doesn't even say he was drunk or make an excuse. He intentionally did this. And her life was totally ruined. She'd had a hard life. She couldn't even enjoy her older age. She had to have somebody with her. She was terrible. It never went away. She served her sentence. Let him serve his sentence. Let him serve just like she had to serve. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Morning, thank y'all for your time and patience, and here in the I'll be short about it, and to the point. This man intentionally come there to kill this woman, and unspeakable acts. Can you imagine the terror she went through, hour in, hour out? Him, committing these unspeakable acts. She asked him, "Are you going to kill me?" He says, "You done seen my face now." So, yes. I had a nephew, her son, stayed with him quite a bit with her. He was 5 years old. He would have killed him right off the bat if he would have been there. And the reason he would kill him, he couldn't. He's a high-strung kid, and he would have been bouncing around all over the place in order to commit his act and stay there hours. After hours, I cannot believe that somebody would do that to an old woman. And this man is a habitual offender. This ain't a first time thing. I knew one of the old ladies that he tried to, he broke into her house. I mean, he wasn't invited in. He didn't just walk in. He broke into her house and tried to assault her. Luckily, she was surrounded with a lot of people. And she managed to run out there screaming. The poor old lady couldn't hardly walk. Why would you want a 30-year-old man want to assault a woman that is 60 to, I think she was probably 70 to 80, because I knew her not very well, but fact of the matter, I used to pay rent to her or of the place that we were renting, and I knew the lady. And when the judge and the jury heard this story, they heard the true story, everybody, and they decided at that time this man was guilty. He is an habitual offender. So I really don't think he's got the capability of not offending again. If he's able to walk, he will offend again. And he would be here for murder if he hadn't been scared off by somebody coming looking for a cow that morning. Just drove up. They didn't. And the mama said the last thing she seen of him, and that she carried that to her grave. Him running down the road trying to put his pants on like a coward. He wouldn't stand and go against anybody but a 60, 70, 80-year-old woman that he could control. And I can't understand how anybody like him could ask to be let out. Much less, that's condoning what the jury said to start with. This man is in there for 150 years. And I just don't believe anybody in here want him exposed to their grandchild, their grandmother. Now that he's in bad health and older, who would be next? Would it be little kids that he can control? And that's all I really have to say. And I appreciate y'all signing here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Statement just. Thank you. Two of the children, my brother and my little brother, still live in Catchpole Parish. They live not right in that town, but they're close in the vicinity on that area still.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Mr. Smith, is there anything you'd like to say before the panel votes?
I ask y'all for mercy, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Roche?
Mr. Smith. Your case is a difficult case. You're going to be 77 in September of this year. You have serious medical issues. You've been incarcerated for almost 47 years. And you have a problem, and you hadn't addressed that problem with substance abuse. Before I deliver my decision, I want to thank the victim's family for their appearance today. I appreciate your statements. But there's three reasons for incarceration. First reason is isolation. Because that person is a risk to public safety. At the age of 77 years old, with the medical issues that Ms. Smith has, I don't think he's a danger to society. Second reason is retribution. Punishment for the crimes that is committed. Mr. Smith has been incarcerated for almost 5 decades, 47 years. And then rehabilitation. Mr. Smith has taken Thinking for a Change, anger management, a host of other programs, Malachi Dad's, $100 free release. The only thing that he doesn't have is substance abuse education. And I may be wrong, but under the care of his sister, with a very tight curfew and a restriction of no contact with the victim's family, I think we can solve that by him attending NAAA meetings at least 2 or 3 times a week. Having said all of that, I'm going to grant Mrs. Smith's request based upon security takeout. Take out.
Thank you.
All of the building.
Sir.
Your part. Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna grant your request based upon your age, based upon the length of your incarceration. That is the only 2 reasons that I can think of for granting, because I don't think you're dangerous to society. And you've served almost 47 years of incarceration. Your conditions after release. You must follow all requirements of your sex offender registration. You must register as a sex offender, and you are to follow all recommendations or requirements of that sex offender conduct.
Yes, sir.
And I want you to have a curfew from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Between those hours, you are not to be outside of your sister's home.
I heard you, sir.
If you come in contact with the victim's family, you are to vacate that space immediately. I don't want you having any contact,
Yes, sir.
family.
Yes,
You
sir.
understand the condition,
I heard you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Brookshire. Ms. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Smith, I concur with my colleague. Based on your age, the fact that you've served almost 50 years in prison, the fact that you've not had any write-ups since 1999, and that you have participated in good programming, both likewise to grant with the same condition.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the victim's family. Courage. I concur with my colleagues based upon his age and the time that he's in prison. Like with the conditions as outlined. The parole has been granted, Mr. Smith. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.